There's a very good question. Sarah, you seem to refuse to look at the social questions like I'm
because
doing.
I just don't need it because
job.
I have so many in my.
Our listeners actually really don't like it when we don't ask their questions. And there's a very
am I allowed to
one.
finish this question or no?
Fine. But next time, maybe go to the question. Welcome, new people. You should know that we are never prepared. We are always wearing sweats. We're never wearing makeup.
I would almost consider myself the MC of this podcast. I am the narrator.
So welcome. We hope you enjoy this. So many of you have been asking for a fertility episode. It's something that we love to talk about, that there's always new and exciting information to learn about, discuss, analyze, and we have an amazing fertility doctor on this episode. Okay, her name is Dr. Lucky Sekhon. She's fantastic. And she not only is a board certified reproductive endocrinologist, infertility specialist, and OBGYN, but to me, what's most important is that she actually went through IVF herself to have one of her kids. So she knows exactly what it's like to go through it. She's awesome. It's basically Fertility 101 in this episode. We cover all the biggest misconceptions about fertility and where the knowledge gap is. She shares her own experience. And she has a book called The Lucky Egg, Understanding Your Fertility and How to Get Pregnant Now. It's going to be out in January, but you can pre-order it. We highly recommend it.
Well, this is a long overdue episode.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You really, it feels like bad casting, like a beautiful doctor named Lucky. Like, is it real? This feels like it can't even be real. Like, you're real?
You know who she reminds me of?
I feel like it's great casting personally, but
no, it's very good casting. Actually.
She reminds me of the actress who we love, Sarah Shahi.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh yeah.
Wait, I have to look her up. I have to look her up.
She's on that show Paradise.
I feel like I've been living under a rock lately. I've been writing my book. That's my excuse for everything whenever I'm out of the loop.
It's a good excuse. Well, we're very excited to have you on. Dr. Lucky Sekhon, you are a fertility expert. You are a board certified reproductive endocrinologist.
Erin,
what?
We do the glossy, beautiful introductions when she's not here because we'd like to not make our guests uncomfortable by, listing all their accolades.
I love it.
We will do that all when you are not here.
Continue. Okay. But listen, fertility is it's a very big conversation right now. And I think that it seems like no matter how much we talk about it, women are still very confused. And so I feel like you've written this really cool book called The Lucky Egg. And I want you to just give us a little bit of your background and, what made you want to write this book. And then we can dive into all the topics.
For sure. So, my background is obviously I'm a fertility doctor. I'm an OBGYN first and foremost. And then I decided to subspecialize in this area because I just find it fascinating. If you think about how fast the science has moved, IVF didn't exist 50 years ago. And I think that's pretty incredible when you think about how many people each of us in our lives know, even ourselves. Like my second daughter is from IVF. And I know you've had your own journey. And, it touches so many people's lives and it's become much more successful than it's ever been. We went from single digit success rates to now being able to say, like I just did 8 embryo transfers between 1 and 3 o'clock today. And each of those patients has the expectation that there could be like a 60 to 70% chance that the transfer could work because most of the cases today were genetically tested, high quality embryos. And that is remarkable to me. And so I really gravitated towards the science, but also as a woman and as someone who grew up in a matriarchal household, I found it really empowering, the aspect of egg freezing and just being able to do things that our grandmothers never had the option to do. I find it really inspiring and I love the conversations that I can have and the privilege that I have to be let into people's lives, and whether they're coupled or they're an individual parent by choice or they're navigating their reproductive future and biological clock, just having these really intimate conversations and helping people with a really vulnerable area. And then the book and my social media presence and all the things that I'm doing outside of my day job really came about because I'm just pissed. I'm so mad on behalf of all women that we are just expected to fumble our way through life. And, the first half of adulthood is all about preventing pregnancy. And then no one guides you through anything else. There's no formative education like there is in health class about how to contracept and how to prevent pregnancy when it comes to doing that 180 and saying, all of a sudden now I have to understand what ovulation is and how to time it and when to seek help and do I have endometriosis? Do I have PCOS? And, I could go on and on. Like it takes an average of 8 to 10 years to get diagnosed with a problem like endometriosis, which can severely impact one's quality of life and their fertility. So there's an endless list of reasons why I wrote this book, but I really wrote it for the patients that I sit across from at my desk. And I just see the confusion and fear in everyone's face when they walk through the door. And my goal in the 1 hour that I spend with each new patient is for them to feel at ease and feel like, okay, I can kind of get a handle on this and I understand what the path is moving forward. But I just think it's really unfair that people are up at all hours of the night, Googling and just trying to figure their way out through this really complicated maze of information. And then not to mention all of the misinformation and people that want to take advantage of the fear and vulnerability surrounding women's health. So it just needed to happen. And I can't believe in 2025, there hasn't been a book yet that was written by an actual doctor, not someone just trying to sell you supplements, that just decodes everything. I mean, it's like learning a new language. Anyone who's gone through IVF has had to learn a new language.
And by the way, I've had, 6 fertility doctors. None of them have ever been through IVF before. I've never had a doctor who's been through it, which is not like their fault or anything, but they've never experienced what it's like to be on the other side. And so I think it's really interesting.
Maybe they didn't share.
Yeah. By the way, maybe they didn't share. You never know. But I do think it changes things having a doctor who's been in it. And so can you explain for people, I think kind of the biggest conversation that I have with women who are trying to understand if they should freeze their eggs is, can you talk about the sort of, I don't know if there's a conflict of interest for you actually, but it doesn't seem like it is. The lack of a real security that it is freezing your eggs. Like it's not really the thing people think it is. 10 years ago, it was like, well, just freeze your eggs, period,
right.
End of story. And then you have this like surefire way to have a baby later.
Correct.
And in my experience and in most of my friends' experiences, it is not the safety net that people think it is. Can you explain that?
Yes, I love that you're bringing this up because the pendulum has, in fact, swung in the opposite direction. When it first became a thing, it was like, oh my God, we can just put our eggs on ice, put our future on ice. And now the pendulum has swung to the opposite direction where like the New York Times has a lot of negative headlines and there's a lot of negative stories that are real people's stories, right? And I think egg freezing is actually wonderful. And I've seen it help so many people extend their timeline because many of us, including myself, have started to build their families in their mid to late 30s or later. And evolution hasn't caught up and it makes it difficult biologically. A lot of the times it increases your chance of needing help. And so having a larger pool theoretically that you were able to access in one cycle of effort, and those eggs have a higher conversion rate to healthy embryos if and should you ever need to rely on them to build your family, can give you a massive head start. I never use the word insurance policy, and I think words matter. It might seem like a technicality, but it's not an insurance policy because that's implying that it's this automatic safety net, as you put it. But really, it's a head start, and it can make a huge difference, but it's not perfect because human reproduction isn't perfect. I always talk to every patient who's considering freezing their eggs about the fact that when you ovulate one egg, if you're in your mid-30s, let's say, there's probably a 15% chance that that egg could fertilize, everything will line up, it'll turn into an embryo, it'll be a healthy embryo that actually implants. That inefficiency doesn't magically go away just because you did this high-tech thing that cost a lot of money and was a lot of effort. So when you collect a bunch of eggs and you extract them and you freeze them, you're freezing a bunch of long shots. And you just need to be able to calculate, and it's a big guesstimate because you don't know ultimately how many of those eggs will thaw. The thaw survival rates are actually quite high nowadays, so that's less of a wild card, but still you don't know until you actually go to use them. But maybe like 85 to 90% will survive the thaw. On average, 70 to 80% will fertilize, maybe 60% on average, and that's like a huge variation depending on your age, your egg quality, the sperm quality. So not all of those eggs are going to turn into embryos. Maybe if you're lucky, only half of them do. So you have to know about that from the outset. And I have patients.
Yeah, half is good, probably.
It depends on the person, right? Like some people have a lot of attrition and then some people have a great conversion rate where you're like, wow, this is amazing. You have no idea. You're like an Olympian of reproduction. Like this is unheard of. So it's hard because you don't know.
And so if I can just put a little bit of that in layman's terms, just for people, like in terms of let's say you're 34 and let's say you have 20 eggs in a cycle, right? So like and please stop me where I'm like going off the path and not saying something accurate.
Sure.
So every month, let's say you have 20 eggs, 10 on each side, that are available. One of them will ovulate.
Correct.
Typically. And so the 19 of them just disappear and you lose them for the rest of your life. They go away, they get absorbed back into your body. And that one is going to ovulate. That's your one chance to get pregnant. And it's a crapshoot whether that egg is viable or not, meaning you can get pregnant with that egg. So when you do IVF, instead of losing those other 19, you're going to take hormones and shots, and they're going to take all 20 out. Instead of just having that one option, you now have 20 options. But when they take those eggs out, you don't really know the difference between a good egg and a bad egg at that point. There's some that are like visibly not good, right? They are cracked or they're damaged or they're clearly not like ripe, for a better term. They're mature.
Not mature. Right. Exactly.
Okay. So an average potential cycle could look like you get 20 eggs out, 16 of them are mature, 12 of them start to, well, no, actually now that's turning it into embryos, right? So let's say like 12 of them are mature. Sorry, go on.
No, you're saying like you get 20 out, 16 mature. I would consider that a good thing. I'd say like 80
Definitely
to 90%
good.
Mature, right? You can only fertilize the mature ones. And you were actually on the right track. I was going to say you could do my job for me.
Oh, okay,
like
great.
12 out of 16 is like a normal fertilization rate.
Right. Okay, so then 12 out of 16 start to fertilize, which means, so now we're past putting eggs on ice. Now we're making embryos, right? So when you're just freezing your eggs, those 16 you freeze. They sit there for a couple years. You have no idea if you have 16 good ones, 16 bad ones, or anything in between. Then let's say you meet someone and you want to thaw those eggs. So now some of them don't make it through the thawing process. So now that 16 is 12, let's say. Yeah. So then those 12 you pair with sperm. And let's say 9 of them start to form embryos. And then of those 9, by day 5, you have 5 of them that have hit blastocyst, which means that they're actually like potential. And then of those 5, 2 of them test really well.
Depending on your age. Yeah.
Right. Of course, depending on your age. So now you went from 20 down to 2 options.
Yes.
That means that those now have to be frozen and then thaw perfectly and implant into your body and take to full term. So the numbers just get so much smaller than people realize. And again, that's a hypothetical.
It's like an inverted pyramid, and it's the perfect example. And actually, I'm so impressed with the way you threw those numbers out, because those are, I was anticipating what you might say. And that's the exact type of breakdown that I would give a patient. So clearly, you know what you're talking about.
Well, I think it's important to mention Erin's gone through this a lot,
Yeah,
I know. She's talked about it.
I'm not like, it's not like a proud thing. I mean, I wish I had the medical degree. You have to have this knowledge. Unfortunately, I've done about 20 to 25 cycles of IVF. So I've done too many
probably
to
tons
have
of your
this
own
experience.
research too.
Which would you say, have you ever met another patient that's done IVF between 20 and 25 times? Because I've never met anybody else.
Yeah, I would say you're at the extreme end of the spectrum. I mean, I've had a lot of patients that have had to do a lot of cycles, and my patients that are, especially the ones in their 40s that, have eventually been successful, oftentimes, realistically, it's because they were persistent and did multiple rounds to overcome the egg quality issues that crop up by that time. But 20 is an extreme number, but it's different for different people. And the hardest question I get asked by patients is like, when is enough enough? Because the answer is never the same for 2 different people, even if they have the same metrics. It's such a personalized
I like to say
decision.
it's kind of like a gambling addiction. It's like you always think next time's going to be the one. You always think it's going to hit. And because you get closer, like this time, you got further, it's so easy to keep coming back, and it can make you go crazy. And sometimes you do have to tap out, and you have to say like, let's look at other options. Let's see how else I can become a parent, because you can't spend your life making yourself go crazy. There's lots of different ways you can become a parent: sperm donor, egg donor, surrogate. There's so many different things you can do. Adoption, of course, adoption. That I do think that you can drive yourself crazy with an obsession to do it the way you want to do it. And sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah. One of the most common questions I get asked is, well, how many rounds should I do? And then, if I need to move on to the next thing. And I always say, I can't project how many you're going to need. And I don't know how you're going to feel even after going through one. So let's go through one and see what happens, because there's so much of this that is a blind spot. Yes, I can quote stats and throw out the numbers like you did. Those are typical rates of drop off. But everyone is an individual. And a huge blind spot in our field is that we don't have a direct way to test anyone's egg quality. So we're making a guess based on your age. We're saying at best in your 20s, 20 to 25% of embryos that result, and not all eggs result in an embryo, will be abnormal, but the majority will be healthy. And then that ratio really starts to flip, especially after 38. That's when it's like the flip of the coin starts to be weighted towards having the outcome you don't want, right? It's like over 50% chance of an embryo being abnormal, but it's not a cliff. And that's the biggest takeaways. Like, it's not like the minute you turn 35, your egg quality plummets. It's really gradual, and then it becomes a little bit less gradual as you get older.
And would you say it's not always accurate? Like, and I can say this because our little sister said this actually on the pod. She did all of her blood work, all of the tests, everything. They were like, you have the eggs of like a 50-year-old. Like, your days are you're not going to have more kids. And then she got pregnant naturally and has a healthy baby at 40 next month, and she was told, like, you have the eggs of a 50-year-old. She said that on the pod.
Okay, so I have a visceral reaction because I've heard many people, like, they've DM'd me, they've come to me for second opinions. I would never say that to a patient. It's so misleading because there's two separate issues, and this is what everyone conflates all the time. One is your egg count, and that's something you can actually measure in an individual. And there isn't like an egg count that everyone should have at a certain age. It's kind of like, this is what's typical. Are you below what's typical? Are you above what's typical? And you judge it based on two things: your AMH test, which is a blood test, anti-Müllerian hormone. It's a hormone that tells you how many eggs you have available in a relative sense. And then you can do the ultrasound and, count how many are at the surface and available that month that are going to go to the wayside. If you don't use them, you lose them. That's a quantitative marker. And so that's the only thing that they could have been referring to. But saying you have the eggs of a 50-year-old is implying that having a low count means that the quality is really low. And that's actually so not true. There are so many women that are in their 20s and early 30s that come to me crying because they were told they have like perimenopausal eggs and, they're never going to get pregnant. But having a low number doesn't mean anything. Actually, if you're able to ovulate, it's all about the quality of those eggs, and there is no test for quality. And we're all in a level playing field. Whether we have a high egg count or a low egg count, we're all ovulating one egg each cycle.
No, I've always had a very low egg count, and for whatever reason,
getting pregnant.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it was always
because you had
pretty simple,
low numbers but high quality, which is good for you. I'm so happy for you. FP Movement is Free People's activewear brand. They are designed for all the ways that you move. It's, you can wear it out in the world when you're hanging out, having lunch, also obviously to exercise. But FP Movement, they have all these breathable sets. They have great supportive bras. They have cozy outerwear. They have colorful accessories. Every piece is made to support movement, self-expression. And they also have a big sustainability factor, which is great. We love that. FP Movement supports CARE FP's mission. It protects the planet through sustainable practices and nonprofit partners. You know that Sarah doesn't care about that, but thank God one of us does, because I do. What Sarah cares about is that it's cute. And their stuff really is cute.
I'm going to make it pretty easy here. When you are wearing workout clothes, you want to feel sucked in. You want to feel like everything's being held in place, but you also don't want to feel restricted. Does that make sense? And there's something about the FP Movement stuff. You don't feel restricted. You feel like you can do yoga, you can stretch, you can run, you can do all those things. It's lightweight. I won't reach for things where I have to like tug and pull to get things on. It's too annoying. I need to grab for things where you put your foot in and it just slides right on like butter. And that is what FP Movement is.
Yeah. So visit fpmovement.com to shop online or visit one of the stores across the country to shop in person. That's fpmovement.com. Fatty 15 is so interesting. So we now know that C15 strengthens our cells and is a key healthy aging nutrient. So it basically helps slow biological aging at the cellular level. It's pretty much as important as it gets. So when our cells don't have enough C15, they become fragile and then they age faster. When our cells age, our bodies age, which means that we are starting to look older. So fatty 15 basically is the C15 that we are needing to essentially reverse the aging of our cells, slow it down.
Wait, did you see, Erin, that woman on TikTok? There was a woman on TikTok. She was like, I am 47 and I have blah, blah, and she showed her before and after. This woman looked 25 years old. I was like, and it didn't look like she had any filter on it. She was standing in the light. I was like, what is happening? And it was an ad for Fatty 15. Did you not see this? It's everywhere.
I didn't see it. But like, look, all the stuff that we're buying, all the wellness products, all the supplements, all the health things, all the facials, all the lasers, all that stuff. If we really were doing it on a cellular level, that is all we need to be doing.
That's deep, Erin. That was deep. And you know what? You're not wrong. If you are not starting from within, all the things that we're doing on the outside to make ourselves look better, you got to do both. You got to do the inside and the outside.
So Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/Foster and using the code Foster at checkout.
Boll and Branch, Erin. Boll and Branch, it's that time of year. We're heading into fall. I think it's time that I replace some sheets, some pillow inserts. You know what I say? What do I always say? September is the start of the new year. September.
Yeah, you do say that.
It's when the leaves are changing. Kids are back to school, football season, all of the things. It's a great time of year to reset. It's a great time of year to refresh, replenish. So your sheets are a great place to start. You know, it's interesting to me the things that people prioritize and the things people don't. What you sleep in is, I would say, one of the most important things that you're doing. It's how we spend half of our lives in bed. So Boll and Branch sheets are made free from toxins with the finest 100% organic cotton. They are buttery soft. Once you gotta wash them. With every wash, they are going to get softer and softer.
But by the way, they start out soft.
They start out soft, but they only get softer.
No, they're amazing.
By the way, they also have, don't they have some crazy return policy? They have a crazy return policy because they know they're not coming back. They know once you buy them,
yeah, I'm sure no one's ever returned them before. It's a 30-night worry-free guarantee.
Yeah. The 30 nights. So they're like, sleep on them for 30 nights. Guess what? If you're not happy, you can send them back. They know you're going to be happy.
Exactly. So feel the difference an extraordinary night's sleep can make with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/Foster15. That's Boll and Branch, BOLL and branch.com/Foster15 to save 15%. Exclusions apply. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience having to do IVF?
Yeah.
As an IVF doctor, I'm curious what the circumstances were around needing IVF. And then also, like, in what ways did it change how you do your job and what you know about it?
For sure. So I actually didn't do egg freezing. I did embryo freezing, but this was like a preventative measure. And I didn't know if I was going to end up needing to rely on it, but I knew enough just from doing my job that the biological clock is real and it doesn't matter how healthy I am, how much I do Pilates and eat clean. Like, your age is your age, and you have to be realistic and plan ahead if you know you might be in your mid to late 30s and older and still wanting to build your family. So in my mid 30s, I had actually, this is so funny because when I was a med student, before I got into women's health specifically, I was all about like, I can do whatever I want. I'm not going to start trying until I'm in my 40s. Like, I can just do IVF. Like, I had that mentality. And I actually told my husband that when we met in our late 20s, that like, we're never going to have kids until we're in our 40s. Like, that's the plan. We even bought a 1-bedroom. Like, we had no plans. And then when I got deeper into this field, and then like my OBGYN tested my levels and they were a little on the lower side. And again, like, I know that that doesn't mean anything about my ability to get pregnant, but it's human nature to feel like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it put me on notice. So I said to my husband, I was like, actually, I think that I should go off of the pill tomorrow and we should start trying, because I'm seeing all sorts of shit in my job where people are struggling, people are trying to make plans and the plans don't always come to fruition. And I just don't want to gamble and I'm freaking out and we're married. Like, let's just do this. And I'll probably struggle. And I ended up luckily getting pregnant. Actually, it was fine with my first. And as soon as
and
I
how
was
old
done,
were you at that time?
I was 33. Yeah.
Okay.
But I got kind of scared straight just by seeing a number that really didn't mean anything about my fertility and also just seeing other people's struggles. And I was like, let me get real about this. Like, there's never going to be a perfect time. Let me just do this. But then I was freaking out the whole time I was pregnant because my original plan was, we'll try, it probably won't happen. And then I'll freeze some embryos because I thought I wanted to have 3 kids. I was like 2 to 3 kids. That's my goal. And anyways, what ended up happening was after I delivered and after I finished breastfeeding, we cycled and I tried to create embryos. And I actually ended up needing to do multiple rounds because my egg count was lower then. And my egg quality was different, right? It had been like a year or two. And now I was closer to like my actual mid-30s. And I had a cycle where I got canceled. Like I just didn't respond. And then I had another cycle where I responded, but I only got 2 mature eggs. And as much as the fertility doctor brain was like, you don't have actual infertility. You got pregnant, remember? And these low numbers and low response to this very artificial process is a function of just having less eggs available. Like if you had gotten more than 2 eggs, you probably would have gotten something out of the cycle. But it felt bad. And I felt ashamed and I felt embarrassed because I was doing the cycle where I work. And I mean, I work at RMA of New York. It's like one of the best programs. Everyone was so lovely and understanding. But I just felt like it was so hard to be a patient in that moment. Being a patient where I worked felt really hard. I just felt like, is everyone talking about me? Is everyone like wondering what's happened to my cycle? And like, no one was. But
like, oh, did you hear? Lucky has really bad fertility.
I don't know. I just felt so bad. I like closed the door when I got the news and I cried in my office and was like, get it together. Like, what would you tell a patient? So I think that gave me a very unique perspective. I mean, in the end, I did multiple rounds. I got the embryos. I did have secondary infertility because by the time I was trying for baby number 2, I was 37, 38, did rely on a transfer to get pregnant. And that's my younger daughter. And I'm so grateful. But now I talk to patients about it all the time. And I always wonder, like, is it unprofessional to share my personal experience? But sometimes it matters.
No. It's the opposite. Can I just tell you, like, as someone who's obviously been through it a lot and been through different doctors' offices and felt the, kind of grocery store like feeling that you can feel in those waiting rooms where it's just like next in line, next in line, next in line.
Yeah.
It's which I understand is just a busy business and it's very challenging for doctors as well to spend the time you want to on your patients. But when you feel like your life's relying on something and the doctor comes in and has someone else's chart in their hands, or misremembers what your circumstances were,
it's hurtful.
and you do feel like a number, it is. And I understand it. Like I wouldn't be able to be a doctor and make every single person feel like you're the only patient you have all day. But all of that is to say that I think your experience is really unique in this world because I've never been witness to it. And you having to feel that shame, it's not that I'm happy you felt that way, but I think that it really gives you a perspective that's so necessary and rare. Because as a woman, like we are put on this earth to procreate. It's what we're here to do. Of course, as modern women, we have many other skill sets and great things that we can do. But primarily, we are here to procreate and carry children. And it's like the most beautiful thing. And if you want that and your body's not doing it, the shame you feel, it's like you're not a woman. It's like you're not fulfilling your purpose. You're not like, why am I not good at it? And the world keeps telling you, and unintentionally your friends keep telling you, there are things you can be doing that could change it, and you're not doing it right. You're not going to the right acupuncturist. You're not drinking the right smoothie. You're not eating the right foods. You're not drinking the Chinese tea, or you're not, you wearing socks. You're letting yourself get cold, or you're not eating. You're drinking wine, or you're going skiing, or whatever the thing is. Like you're dyeing your hair. You're wearing nail polish. You're not eating organic food. Like I actually lost my mind. Like I felt like I couldn't do anything. Everything that I was doing by someone's standard was participating in why I couldn't get pregnant.
There's so much noise.
And it makes you feel like it's your fault, So you having that experience is really special, I think. And it's humbling for you as the person who's witnessing all these women who, now why they're feeling it. And it's irrational, but it's also, I understand why it makes us feel that way.
And admittedly, like the number one thought in my head was, this is my fault because I wasn't sleeping as much as I should have. I was stressed out. I had like busy stuff going on with my job. And then I'm like trying to juggle this. And I, drank Diet Coke and I like had a glass of wine. And so it's exactly that. And that actually goes back to the question of why I wrote the book, because I'm not going to say what the name of the book is, but the most popular fertility book, and it's been like this for like decades now, which is mind boggling, is not written by a doctor. And the whole narrative is you can fix your egg quality. It's all on you. And it's like,
Ooh.
What about the sperm? What about things you can't control? Like there are things you cannot control. And I think people drive themselves nuts. I meet a lot of type A women. I work in New York City and, I'm type A myself. And in your whole life, you put in the work, you get the degree. You put in the work, you get the job. You achieve the goal. Keep working, you get what you want. And this is one area of life where that does not apply.
Wait, can you improve your egg quality, or is it just is what it is?
So it's confusing, but I'm going to try to break it down in a really simple way. There's something happening in the background, which is basically aging, right? And one of the ways that aging affects our fertility and our egg quality specifically is there are these filing cabinets. Let's call them filing cabinets. They're actually these proteins called cohesins. And they keep the chromosomes filed away neatly. And when you have an egg joined with a sperm, it's supposed to be 23 chromosomes and 23 chromosomes joining together to make 46 chromosomes to be a healthy embryo that can implant and stay implanted, right? And the protein, the filing cabinet, is what breaks down with age. And there's data on this, and lots of experiments have been done to prove this. And so we know that there tends to be this haphazard movement of chromosomes from one cell into the other. And that's why a lot of the chromosomal or genetic abnormalities and embryo quality issues seem so linked to the age of the egg. So as we get older, those proteins break down, the filing cabinet breaks down, and everything gets more disorganized. And so it becomes more common to ovulate an egg that can result in an embryo that doesn't have what it takes. And so that's always happening in the background. And we don't know how to reverse that or make any major changes to that system. But this is like hard to explain, but basically when an egg is in the ovaries, when it matures and ovulates, it goes through the first stage of genetic reorganization. It's called meiosis, going back to like high school biology. And then when it gets fertilized, so it's suspended there, and then it gets fertilized, and then it rearranges again. So that's when those errors specifically happen, in those rearrangement stages during ovulation. So maturing and ovulating an egg, and then fertilizing it. So we do know that lifestyle matters, and especially like things like insulin resistance, which is like a very buzzy word right now, but a lot of women with PCOS, strong family history of diabetes, like high insulin levels can actually impact the environment in your ovaries. And I see it all the time, and I talk about it every day, all day with so many of my patients, because sometimes they'll have a history of a cycle outcome that wasn't great and a lot more attrition than expected for age. And I'm like, wait, you have PCOS. And like, I just checked these markers, your testosterone levels are off the charts. Like, you have insulin resistance. So correcting that can make a difference because you're creating a healthier environment. So in the background, yes, the filing cabinet goes.
How do you correct insulin?
Is insulin resistance diabetes?
It's not diabetes. It's on a spectrum, right? Diabetes is when it's like to a point where your body cannot regulate sugars. So insulin is a hormone that's produced by your pancreas, and it allows your body, like muscle cells, fat cells, to store away sugars. And if your body's not listening to those signals, the insulin levels go up. And insulin actually acts
all like told by a blood test?
Well, it's actually kind of hard to diagnose. It's not always obvious because insulin isn't an easy thing to accurately check directly. So I always look for like indirect markers. Like I look at something called a hemoglobin A1C that measures your sugar control over the last 90 days. And sometimes people will have like pre-diabetic range. But another telltale sign is someone has high testosterone levels or high DHEAS levels. Like these are types of testosterones or androgens that when they're elevated, that tells you something is driving up production of that from your ovary, and that is not in a healthy balance. And that can create an environment where those eggs are more prone to errors than they otherwise would have been just as a result of age. So that's the tricky thing.
This is something I didn't know. This is something
a lot of people don't know.
If you have low testosterone, what does that say?
So that is harder to really tease apart. I mean, there are some people that are like, as women get older, their testosterone levels drop. It's why one of the signs or symptoms of perimenopause and menopause is low libido. And so people have thought to use testosterone to prime the ovaries, but studies haven't actually shown that that helps. We do know that too much testosterone is not good for egg quality, though. So anything that indirectly drives up your testosterone levels should be corrected as much as it possibly can be to restore a more normal environment to the ovary. And things like excess weight, like this is one of the links between obesity and lower fertility, right? Because it's automatically... the more fat we have on our bodies, like excess adipose tissue, especially around our midsection, the more insulin resistant you tend to be. And this is one of those examples where, diet, exercise, building muscle, because having muscle actually makes you more sensitive to insulin. Those things can help, but do they undo the effect that aging has in the background? Not necessarily. So the idea of take 6 months off, take all these supplements and do this, do that, it can be damaging because we all know that fertility is time sensitive and the number of eggs that you have could be really important if you do need treatments like IVF. And the quality of your eggs is important regardless of how you're trying to get pregnant. So it's a balancing act.
Guys, let's be honest. We all see all the people on, the reality shows with 25 children and they're not healthy. You can just look at them. You're like, you're not living the healthiest lifestyle. I feel like my friends and I always talk about this. We're like,
well, that takes me to something that you say in your book, which I really liked. Hold on. I'm about to say it to you. Is fertility is not logical or fair.
Yeah. That's so true. It's so true. That goes back to what I was saying, the amount of effort doesn't equal the result. And that's true of dating to some degree as well, because you can put yourself out there and try to, control all the things you can control. But there's a lot of serendipity and chance and randomness. And also what happened in one cycle isn't necessarily going to happen in the next cycle, because in the background, remember, it's a different set of eggs that got recruited. And it's like reaching your hand into a bag of M&Ms, like red and green M&Ms. Every time you're going to get a different proportion because you're working with a limited sample size. And, going back to doing multiple cycles, sometimes the only way to kind of see results that start to make sense for the stats and for your age is to have multiple eggs to work with, whether that's from one retrieval, and if that's not possible, over multiple.
What's the connection to low vitamin D levels and fertility? Because I've been told since I was 16, every blood test is oh, you're very low in vitamin D. And I used to just ignore it. I would just be okay, who cares? I'll sit in the sun a little bit. And then another very low vitamin D. And I've been told this forever. And only in the last couple of years have I started actually taking a supplement and whatever. But I think that has had a connection maybe, or that's a sign, or it's a result of, or what are you tell me about vitamin D and fertility?
So it's not as clear cut as talking about insulin resistance. There's a lot of controversy in the field actually, because there are some studies that show correlations between low vitamin D and lower AMH levels than expected for age. There are some that show significantly different results when people with vitamin D deficiencies go through IVF. And so there is some suggestion that it plays an important role in many different aspects of reproduction, whether that be an egg turning into a healthy embryo, responding well to treatment, or even an embryo implanting successfully and the health of a future pregnancy. So we all supplement it. If someone has low levels, I actually check vitamin D on all my patients. And if it's low, because a lot of people, especially living in this region of the world, are going to have some level of deficiency, I supplement it. But you also want to caution people to not just willy-nilly be supplementing and over dosing on vitamin D, because it can cause kidney stones. You want to make sure that there's a reason to supplement. But yeah, there isn't a clear-cut answer. It's thought to play a really important role in reproduction and pregnancy health. And some studies show difference and some don't, but we err on the side of repleting it if it's deficient.
It's really interesting. I feel I have 2 kids. I'm happy with my 2 kids, but all the older people I've met in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they all sort of say the same thing. When I say, do you have any regrets? Would you have done anything different? And they all say the same thing. I wish I had had more kids. And so it's because of course, I always say to Erin, I'm yeah, having a lot of kids is not conducive to our life now because we're building, we're working hard, we're overworked. We don't have enough, we're not giving our own kids enough attention. But you think about what your life is in that back half, 50 plus, and it's all about your kids and the grandkids and all of that. So I remember saying to my doctor, she's like a longevity doctor. I was like, I wonder if I should freeze my eggs, And she kind of was like, but you have your 2 kids. Like you have your 2 kids. And why would you want to like give yourself unnecessary hormones? Like be happy with what you have kind of thing. And I remember being like, oh yeah, you're right. And then now I'm kind of like, well, damn, I kind of wish I had, not because I think I'm very happy with 2 kids, but it's crazy to be in a situation where you're kind of like, oh shit, like that part of my life has passed now. Like it's a very weird feeling as a woman.
I struggle with this. I'm still struggling with this, to be quite honest with you, because I worked so hard to make those embryos, and I did it with the vision of having 3 children. I came from a family of 4. My husband comes from a family of 3, and he's just so damn practical. He's like, oh, a family of 5, like, how are we going to get an Uber? And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like this is about me, like growing older and having like this full life. I know it'll be chaotic. And he's probably thinking like, oh my God, he helps so much. Like we're very 50-50. So he knows the reality of it is like, it's going to be a lot more work for both of us. But it's hard and it stings because I'm 42. And yes, like for a lot of people, they're probably thinking, okay, well, it could be really challenging, but I know it's possible because your uterus doesn't age. The amount of time the embryos are frozen have no bearing on the reproductive potential. And they're sitting literally 1 floor down from where we're talking from in our lab, frozen in liquid nitrogen. And I would love if he said tomorrow, yes, like, let's just do it. Cause I embrace chaos and he's very much a planner. I would be so down. I would be like, let me go get my saline sonogram and get this show on the road. But he doesn't want to because he's being really practical and he's smart and makes a lot of good decisions. And, I don't want to have regrets and pressure him into doing something that he's not 100% on board. I had 2 C-sections. Like, you never know. There could be a complication. I have 2 healthy kids. So I've resolved to accept it. And I'm like, it is what it is. But I think one thing people don't talk about enough,
and I know you don't like insurance policy, but you have it.
I just want to say one thing. Just a little, not a hot take, but I used to be really triggered when I would go to fertility doctor offices and someone was there trying for their 2nd or 3rd because I was trying for my 1st. And there was sort of a feeling of like, well, you can't judge, anybody who wants to have a child, it's just as important. Now that I'm a mom, after all the times, I have to say, I stand by being triggered by it because we want to have more kids now. We've decided we want to have more.
Whoa,
right?
Erin, are you saying this live on the pod?
It's not that. It's not that spicy. We have embryos. We want to have more. We were just going to have 1, but going from 0 to 1 is life changing.
Yeah,
top to bottom, in and out. Becoming a mother, having a human being that I get to take care of, that's all mine, that I get to raise. Being a mother, it has shifted and it's flipped a switch in me where I get to be a parent. I get to be a mom. If I never get to have more kids, it's fulfilling. And it's something that when you never get to have that, it is a huge loss. It just is. And so going from 2 to 3 or 3 to 5 or 1 to 2 or whatever, it is amazing and it's special. It's a want. But becoming a mother is a need. It is like a visceral thing that you feel inside your bones. Like, I want to mother something.
But Erin, not for everybody. I mean, not for everyone. We know women
but we're talking about someone who wants to have children. Okay. 0 to 1 is so different than 1 to anything else, And I just want to say that just for the people listening who are like, but I've never had that experience.
Totally.
So, like, what you guys want and what I want now too is even more of that experience.
Yeah.
But to not ever have it at all is so different,
Well, it's an identity shifter.
It's harder.
It's an identity shifter, right? Like, whether it's triggering and upsetting to hear, it's the truth. Like, when someone becomes a mom, however they get there, their role in life has changed. Their priorities have shifted. Their identity is different. Like, I am not the same person that I was when we bought the 1-bedroom apartment and we're like, we're not going to have kids anytime soon. But I think people don't talk enough about there are a lot of like, it's a can of worms, right? Like, I'm so happy that I did that and I had the embryos, but now that I have these other embryos, and I've heard lots of patients bring this up, especially if a couple isn't on the same page or maybe they just don't know, it's very hard to decide what to do. Like, do you use them or do you not? And if you're conflicted, it's hard because if you don't have them, it's kind of like left up to chance. But when you have them, it's like, it's right there and I could do it, you know? And I think that that's probably a major first world problem, as you said, to like people that are struggling to just get to number one. But it is something to think about. And it is an interesting dynamic that is very unique to IVF and being able to freeze.
Why is it that we're seeing women now older getting pregnant? I mean, I know women 45 naturally pregnant, but if a 45-year-old went to you guys, do you normally say like, no, we're not going to freeze your eggs at 45? Like, but that 45-year-old could wind up naturally getting pregnant.
I mean, we do have patients who are 45, you know, but the key is you have to be honest about the stats and you have to counsel them. But there are patients that make normal embryos at 45. Does it statistically often take multiple rounds to get there? Yes. And at a certain point, a lot of people are going to say, you know what, I'm getting the eggs because I have a great egg count for my age. It's like extraordinary, but the quality's not there and they may pivot. But a lot of people make assumptions. So, you know, when we think about an unassisted pregnancy, we don't know always the whole story. So like someone today, a patient in one of the consults that I had today was like, by the way, did you hear about that 70-year-old woman in Africa that had a kid via IVF? And I was like, well, I can tell you with certainty that was probably donor egg because like she's too old to have frozen eggs or embryos. Like it just doesn't add up. But like, you don't know the story behind it. And the truth is you can get anyone of any age pregnant because their uterus will always respond to the hormones. They could be menopausal for years. I get patients in menopause pregnant all the time. A lot of times it's like they went into menopause earlier in life. They're in their late 40s, early 50s. And then, you know, it's hard because people get confused. They're like, well, if Janet Jackson can do it, like, I'll just take these supplements and it's possible. The science is there.
I know multiple women who went into menopause early 40s. Multiple women, you know, and I think.
But what you're saying is that there's different ways people are getting pregnant, and don't compare yourself to them because you don't really know how that person got pregnant.
And you can use frozen eggs or frozen embryos and get someone pregnant by providing the hormones that they would normally produce from their ovaries until the placenta takes over at 7 to 10 weeks of pregnancy. Like that's an amazing fact.
Wow.
Foria? Oh my God.
We want to talk to you about Foria, and I'm going to start it off because normally I wait till halfway through the ad to give the stats. But I'm going to start the ad off with the stats.
I love that.
92% of people that used Foria, that used their products, felt more aroused. 92% of people that used Foria reached orgasm. So guys, you do the math. You don't have to be a math wizard to know that that's basically everybody. Awaken, arousal oil, these are all things that should just be next to your bed. You should just add to cart, put them next to your bed. I mean, what else can I say without it being X-rated? It's like if you're gonna be putting things down there, which a lot of people do, most people do, you need to know what ingredients are going in you. I'm just gonna say
you can't be putting a bunch of synthetic crap inside your vagina, people.
You just can't. I mean, you really can't. You really shouldn't.
You really shouldn't.
Foria. I mean, Erin, Foria must be crushing because there's nothing like it.
No.
I've tried other things. Things on the market. Can't say that anything, I'm going to publicly endorse it here.
Whoa.
Can't say that anything has come close to Foria.
They make life-changing, all-natural organic formulas for your most intimate needs, okay? Use your wildest imagination. So yes, you have our permission to try it. We fully endorse you to go ahead and treat yourself or your partner. Experience your juiciest, deepest sensual experience with a bottle of Foria. Foria is offering a special deal for our listeners. Get 20% off your first order by visiting foriawellness.com/Foster or use the code Foster at checkout. That's FORIA wellness.com/Foster for 20% off your first order. I recommend trying their Awaken or their Pleasure Set with all three of their bestsellers. You will thank us later. Needed is the brand that I was taking when I was pregnant, so you can just tell how much I trusted it because that's the prenatal that I was taking. I was also doing their prenatal protein powder and their collagen.
This is the stamp of approval that I think people are looking for because you are a full-blown psycho.
Thank you.
When I think about what you put in your body when you're giving it to your child, then it's like even more so.
I know. Needed has a bunch of great products. I've talked before about their digestive enzyme, which is phenomenal, but they have an amazing comprehensive prenatal multi, and it comes in a powder form as well as a capsule. They also have amazing omega-3s And all their products are super clean and fantastic. I love them.
Up to 90, because I love data. Up to 95% of mothers are not meeting their omega-3 needs. But the omega-3 it needs for fetal development, hormonal and mood balance, postpartum recovery, healthy breast milk, healthy inflammatory response, and more isn't needed. So sign me up, I guess. Can I take that without being pregnant? Of course.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it just makes you healthy. It's not like it gets you pregnant. So head over to thisisneeded.com and use the code Foster for 20% off your first order. That is THISISNEEDED.com and use the code Foster for 20% off your first order. Because there's a question here that I've never really thought of. Does a history of abortion affect fertility?
I get asked this all the time because people, again, internalize the
that
guilt.
pill. That pill is so scary.
But all that pill is doing is causing you to cramp and, to have a pregnancy detach from the uterus. And so I think people worry actually more about the surgical procedure, which is called a D&C, because it's true, any surgery on the uterus could potentially cause scarring. But in my experience, and in the experience of most OBGYNs, a history of having one D&C doesn't mean you're going to have scarring in your uterus and you're going to have issues getting pregnant. There's certain people where it's like, okay, if they've had multiple D&Cs, and it's sometimes the way a miscarriage is managed. I see it a lot, like if someone had retained placenta after a delivery and then they had to get a D&C like a week or two later, if there was an infection, like those are kind of higher risk situations that can lead to scarring. And scarring can be a really difficult thing to deal with. But it is something that we can treat. We can do surgery and we can kind of open up the uterine cavity and get rid of the scarring. But it can be a really difficult problem. So I think that's what people are worried about mostly, not the medical abortions, but surgical. And I always tell people, like, having one surgical abortion, like the vast majority of people are going to heal fine and it's not going to be an issue. But if you've had a lot of those procedures, it is something to talk to your doctor about.
Yeah. And I mean, I've recently learned you can have scar tissue in your uterus from lots of things, because I just got that procedure you're talking about. I got a hysteroscopy, which is removing scar tissue from your uterus, less than a week ago.
Oh,
because
wow.
I went in to see, like, if we wanted to do another one. And she said, let me just take a quick peek at your uterus. And I had a thick white band of scar tissue from one side to the other, just cutting it straight in half. So I would never be able to carry that way. And that was just from giving birth. There was no placenta left behind. It was just giving birth. And I have endometriosis, so I guess my body likes to make scar tissue. And if I didn't do that, I couldn't carry again. So it seems like you can get scar tissue pretty easily. Our bodies are so fucking... They go through so much.
They're so incredible.
They're
incredible. They're also very problematic. There's just always something wrong.
Well, you know what scar is, right? It's like your body's trying to heal itself. It's trying to help you. It just doesn't realize that laying down all that scaffolding and scar tissue prevents proper blood flow and takes up real estate that an embryo wants to implant. So it's trying to help. It's like, if you scratch yourself, there's a scab and then maybe you scar, but it's like, it's trying to heal. It's your body's trying to heal itself.
My body is really annoying about it and is its own worst enemy. So
where
it's always
do you
doing
think
something
the science, you guys, like the way that IVF is so revolutionary and it's been like, what did you say, 50 years? And that is like a medical breakthrough. Where do you think we're headed? Because I listened to a podcast where there was a scientist saying in 10 years, we'll be able to reverse menopause. We'll be able to we'll be able to do all these things. Women will be able to have healthy babies into their 60s. And I don't know, like, where do you sit with that? Do you feel like that's where science is heading?
I think we have to continually ask ourselves, like, the why. Like, do we want to be getting people pregnant at 60? Ethically, is that the right thing we should be doing? And it's tricky because sometimes much older patients will come to me and we have like this ethics meeting each week that's fascinating where we discuss cases. Like, do we look at the combined age of two older prospective parents? And there's actually ethical guidelines from the American Society of Reproductive Medicine on this. Like, should you assess whether they're both healthy enough and young enough that they could raise their child to adulthood to age 21? Like, all of these questions come up all the time. So pushing the limits of science, I think it's amazing if we can help people overcome the really unfair problem of infertility, and there's so many different causes of that. Like, we need to learn how to regenerate a lining that's, scarred down, because that's such a hard problem. And often now, like, the answer is, if we can't fix it and we might do multiple surgeries, like, someone might need to consider surrogacy in a really extreme case. But we need to be able to offer more options where, I'd love to be able to help someone regenerate their lining or regenerate their eggs. I think we have to be careful about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and make sure that it's for the good of society, for the good of the future child. It raises a lot of questions, but I do think that the science is going to keep moving. And what I would really love to see happen is, going from being able to say, okay, best case scenario, your uterine lining looks great, embryo looks great, it's tested, you have a 60 to 70% chance of live birth. I would love for us to get that number higher. And I think being able to test embryos more effectively, helping people be able to recruit more eggs, so that you could just be like, okay, I think this patient needs 25 eggs. Like, let's find a way to get people to recruit more eggs, because you're born with 1 to 2 million. And by the time you get into menopause, you have like less than 1,000. But at any given time, it's only like 10, 15, or 20 that are coming to the surface. If I could just put in a formula and say, okay, take this pill and you're going to recruit more. Yes, I'm depleting your stockpile, but at least like you could just do this all in one cycle,
That would be amazing.
I've like rehearsed this conversation in my head of how I'm going to go to talk to my daughters. I mean, there's so many things to talk to. I have a 14-year-old daughter. It's like we haven't had the conversations about birth control or any of those things. So she's 14, and she's that's nowhere. She hasn't even kissed a boy yet. Anyways, that's another conversation. But
don't talk about her personal life on here.
I know.
Wait, I do. There's a very good question. Sarah, you seem to refuse to look at the social questions, like I'm doing.
Because I just don't need it. Because I have so many in my.
Our listeners actually really don't like it when we don't ask their questions. And there's a very
am I allowed to finish this question or no?
Fine, but next time maybe go to the questions.
Well, I just want to know, at what point do we start kind of talking to our daughters? Because I've rehearsed this conversation of like, I think you should freeze your eggs when you're like 27. I don't know. Like, I've rehearsed this conversation of like, I don't want you to be a mom until you want to be a mom. And I hope, I feel like 30 is a good age. I was 29. You're going to do what you're going to do. But I do want you to be able to have that. I know you don't like insurance policy, but like, what's the right time to talk to our daughters?
I actually don't think it's too early. Like, I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and obviously I'm a fertility doctor, and they watch like my Instagram videos in the background, and they're like, they use the words sperm, embryo, and uterus regularly. So like, I'm a special case. But I do think starting the conversation earlier, like I talk to them about periods, I use the right words for their body parts, because I'm trying to do the opposite of what like my parents did and their parents did, because that's what led to the problem where we're at right now. Like, women only start thinking and talking about their fertility. Now it's getting better, but it used to be like in your 30s. And then it's like, you don't know anything and you're starting from scratch.
Wait till there's already a problem.
Right. So I think it's never too early to start. And if you look at like school curriculum, like my daughter's class, 2nd grade science class, and a lot of parents were up in arms, did a whole reproduction unit. And I actually came in and like talked to them about all this stuff. But I don't think that's bad or scary. I think it's good. We have to normalize the conversation.
I hate that it's up to our girls to be, know that it's up to our girls. The responsibility of having safe sex is just more on our girls. Yeah. Because sure, the guy or the whatever can have a condom, but it's like, we've just been raised like, well, you take the pill, it's your responsibility. Yeah. And now there's so many conversations. We don't have to get into the pill and if we were for it or against it or all those things, but there are more conversations now about the pill being more controversial. And we don't have to get into it, but it's very hard parenting teenagers right now to know the right thing to guide them to do.
I mean, you're right. That could be a whole different episode, but I do see objectively as an expert who's looked at all the data and who herself like feel like the pill saved me because I had like PMDD and it was like so hard. And during like residency, like I just needed to like level set and like not have the crazy hormones all cycle, every cycle. And I've seen it help so many women with endometriosis. I've seen it. It's not all good or all bad. It's not for everyone. But I do think we're in a crisis point where like all these young girls scrolling on TikTok are getting fed tons of like fear mongering BS. And so it's a whole conversation. I think, you got to find, and this is the challenge, you got to find a good doctor that's going to talk to you about your options, that's going to counsel you in a very even way about the pros and the cons. And again, this is one of the reasons I wrote the book. I talk about contraception. I talk about hormones. Like, we need better education, and it can't just be limited to health class.
Yeah. And it can't be, rejecting another narrative, like you're saying, like a doctor who's willing to talk things through with you instead of going like, well, that's bullshit. Well, you can't believe everything you read. Like, looking at like you, when you say it's not all good and it's not all bad, that's probably the most honest answer. Instead of saying you're fine, don't read everything don't believe everything that you read, because that's
there's side effects.
Me,
it's not right for everyone.
It's exactly. So, okay, this is the question that I've never heard before. If you get your period later in life, like 16, does that mean you're fertile for longer?
No.
Sarah, I'm sorry. I asked the doctor.
I've actually looked into this though, but go on.
Yeah. So basically, that whole concept of having a bunch of eggs come to the surface and then they get wasted. Do you know that starts from when you're a fetus? Like at 20 weeks, when you were in your mother's womb, you had the peak number of eggs, 6 to 7 million. By the time you were born, it plummeted to 1 to 2 million. We don't really know why there's that like drastic drop when you're a fetus. Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
you're ovulating as a fetus?
You're not ovulating.
You don't ovulate them.
Right. So like people on birth control or people with PCOS that aren't ovulating, it's not that they're stockpiling their eggs and they're saving them for the future. They're still recruiting eggs and throwing them away, recruiting them, throwing them away. Your brain just hasn't started before puberty. Your brain hasn't started sending the signal to select one of them to ovulate, but you're still losing them. You're still recruiting them and you're still losing them.
Okay. So what does this mean?
So you're not building a line and shedding it, basically. Like that's
correct,
that's your period,
because
right?
that only happens because of the hormonal changes that are associated with ovulation, the selection, maturation, and ovulation of an egg. So if you get your period later in life, like, a lot of women do, especially if they're athletes, whatever, their body weight can affect that. That just means your pituitary took a little longer to wake up and start sending the signals. But that doesn't save you from the fact that we're all recruiting and wasting eggs.
So that's not an indicator that you might have fertility stuff if you haven't gotten your period at 15?
Not necessarily. I mean, for some families, it's like genetic, it runs in the family. I think there's different reasons why people have delayed puberty. And so it depends on what the underlying cause is. Like there are some women that I meet, and it's so sad and so crazy. It's not that common, so I don't want anyone to freak out about this, but they'll have stories like this. They'll say, I was 17, my mom was freaking out because I didn't have any signs of puberty and I hadn't got my period. So then I went to this doctor, then they put me on hormones, and then I had breasts, and then I've just been on the pill ever since. And I'm like, okay, so you've never had a real ovulation. There's no evidence of a real ovulation, right? So like there are some people that have real problems. But the majority of people, when you're just getting a period a little bit later than all your friends are in, 8th grade or 9th grade, that might just be what we call constitutional. It's just like who you are, your genetic makeup, your environmental exposures. But as long as you're ovulating, then you're ovulating. It shouldn't affect anything. It doesn't stockpile your eggs. It doesn't deplete your eggs. It doesn't make you more or less fertile. But if you never are able to ovulate on your own, that is a big problem.
So Josie played a tennis tournament two weekends ago.
Yeah.
And after her second match, I could see, I was like, oh God, we were in the valley. It was hot. Like
She's starting to fade.
Yeah. I was like, she's starting to fade. Like, damn, what did I do? This is a true story. I ran over to her. Because I knew that this could happen in the valley in the summer. I took a Element packet of Element. I put like half of it in a bottle of water. I shook it up, gave it to her. She made the finals of the tournament.
Oh my God.
Here I'm thinking she's going to have to pull out. She's going to have to retire because
Element gave her the energy she needed. That makes sense, by the way. I mean, she needed electrolytes.
She needed electrolytes. Exactly.
Yeah, so Element is a 0 sugar electrolyte drink mix, okay? They also have a sparkling electrolyte water that is so exciting because I've not heard of any other company doing that. Each stick pack of Element delivers a meaningful dose of electrolytes. It is free of sugar, free of artificial colors or any other dodgy ingredients. It's formulated for anyone who is on a mission to restore health through hydration. It's great for athletes. It's great for you if you're fasting or if you're following keto or low carb or whole food diets.
It's great if you want to boost in your skin, sometimes if your skin is looking a little dull or you're just dehydrated. So it kind of reinvigorates your skin.
We love Element. Obviously, it's in every part of my cabinet. All my friends steal it because it's so good and it's super, super clean. So right now, Element is offering a free sample pack with any purchase. That is 8 single serving packets for free with any Element order. It's a great way to try all 8 flavors, or you can share it with a friend. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Foster. The deal is only available through our link. You have to go to drinklmnt.com/Foster.
Erin, I have a true story for you. A true story. Are you ready for my true story?
I mean, truth is yes.
Okay.
Something that you have an interesting relationship with. So I would love to hear a true story.
The other night, my skin was looking dull to the point where even Josie was like,
I saw it.
Thank you. I was like, I'm going to use a lot of products tonight. I'm going to use a lot of products. I'm going to go retinol. I'm going to go all the things. But I'm going to start with the Dermalogica microfoliant, which I'm good about.
The daily microfoliant. Yep.
The daily microfoliant. Okay. There is something about the daily microfoliant that makes all the products just absorb 1,000 times better.
I agree. I'm obsessed with it.
1,000 times better.
I love it.
If you go and if you just wash your face normal and then put your retinol on or put your whatever on, it's going to absorb, but you're going to look at your skin like, okay. If you start with the microfoliant and then you put all the products on right after that, you are going to notice a bigger difference.
By the way, I just use the microfoliant on its own and I notice a difference.
I would have called it the wash the day away.
Oh.
If I had been an executive at Dermalogica, because it's just a lot of the time when you're washing your face, you guys, you are not actually getting everything off your face. You think you are. You think you're like, okay, I'm going to go cleanse. You're not getting it all off. I promise you, you're not. But the microfoliant gets it all off. But it doesn't.
It's not hard on your skin. Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not like stripping.
No,
your
it's
skin.
literally revolutionized the exfoliation category, and they did it in 2001 because it's this ultra fine powder. It activates with water. It's a foamy rice-based exfoliant, and your skin afterwards is just literally like smoother and softer and looks amazing. You got to go get the Dermalogica daily microfoliant. Okay, they have these adorable little travel bottles and then also the regular size. We use both. So now through the end of 2025, visit dermalogica.com and use the code FOSTER at cart for an exclusive free gift with any $65 purchase. That's DERMALOGICA.com. Use the code FOSTER for an exclusive gift with $65 purchase.
Okay, what do you say to our 25? We have a range of listeners, age range. What would you say to our 25-year-old girls listening? They're focused on their career. They probably, haven't, I don't know. They go to the gynecologist. Maybe they don't. Where should you begin, and at what age should you sort of shift your gynecological appointments? And by the way, why did gynecologists never give you an ultrasound? I didn't have an ultrasound until I was pregnant. Can you explain this to me? It's so no, it kills me. The fact that it's not part of it's like not part of your visit. I did not get an ultrasound until I was 29 years old because I was pregnant.
Yes. And this was like my big hot take I posted about like a few weeks ago. And it's controversial as a doctor to be like, this should be a guideline. Why isn't it a guideline? It's not a guideline. But as a fertility expert that sees so many different women from different walks of life, I'm seeing way too much variation. There are some women that are like, my OBGYN does an ultrasound every time they do a PAP, like every year, whenever. And then there are some that are like, I'm 39. I want to maybe like talk to you about egg freezing, or I'm going through infertility. And I'm like, have you ever had a scan before? Like, do you know what to expect? No. And I'm the first one telling them, sometimes it's normal, right? But sometimes I'm the first one telling them, you have a fibroid that's taking up all the space in your uterine cavity, you need surgery, or you have PCOS, or guess what? I see endometriosis in your ovary. And it's frustrating to me.
Can you just explain what PCOS is?
It's polycystic ovary syndrome, a terrible name because it's not really about the cysts per se. It's a tendency for your ovary to be resistant to that signal your brain is sending to it. So not all women with PCOS will have irregular cycles, but a hallmark sign of it, and one of the major symptoms is like you ovulate randomly, irregularly. And it also can cause be it related to resistance to insulin. So it's just this overall theme of resistance. And so you can also have high testosterone levels. You can also be more prone to things like diabetes or gestational diabetes in pregnancy. And it can affect so much. Like there's all this data now on how it can increase your risk for sleep apnea, even certain mood disorders. we're just scratching the surface. But I'm diagnosing a lot of these major things that are super prevalent. 10% of women have PCOS. It's estimated 10% have endo. We know that that's way an undercall because it's not being diagnosed nearly enough. And why am I the first one that's finding this as a specialist?
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like a missed opportunity. I'm not saying that an ultrasound is going to solve all of our problems, but most women who find these things out later in life, they're angry and they're blindsided. They would have loved to have the information sooner.
Yeah. So then gynecologists should be doing scans of their teenage girl patients, right?
I mean, I don't know if it needs to be at the teenage level.
Well, you
because
can't. It's a little bit invasive.
It's invasive.
It's like
and
if you're
it can be traumatizing, especially like to a virginal
Sorry,
patient.
I was
right?
thinking of, I guess I was forgetting that it goes into your,
Yeah.
into the vagina.
I
Because
think
I was
it's
thinking
more
of the
top of
external
mind.
ones.
I feel like I always say like in your 20s or early 30s, like at that point, I feel like every woman should ask themselves, have I had a vaginal ultrasound, a pelvic ultrasound? And if the answer is no, like just ask your GYN. Like a lot of times it's this idea in medicine of, well, if you don't complain about something, we're not going to go looking for problems.
No, it's also money. It's also money. It's money.
Oh,
It's
here we go.
insurance. No, guys, it's money. It's insurance companies. It's such a racket. You go to Germany, you walk into any gynecologist office, they just do it. It's free or it's $100. It's part of the whole thing. I remember I went because I was having crazy UTIs and I was like, do I have to get on a list? Do I have to wait? Is it going to be like over $500? They were like, what are you talking about? Like,
they're like, you poor American woman.
Literally, like it's crazy that you have to wait for your insurance to approve an ultrasound. And then when they do, it's so expensive. It's so
but
backwards.
as a Canadian, I want to say like the grass isn't necessarily greener. Like there's a lot of patients that fly from Toronto to come see me because they're like, I can't wait 12 months to have the government pay for my IVF cycle. Like I need to go rogue. So it's difficult. I think women's health is so underserved. And the thing that bothers me is it's unfair. You happen to stumble upon this OBGYN that thinks it is important to do a scan once in a while. And then this one never suggests it. There's no standard. And that really bothers me. It's not
fair. It should be part of the protocol. Very true. This is a very specific question that I think this person could Google, but can people get pregnant who have Asherman syndrome?
So Asherman syndrome is what we were already talking about, the scar tissue.
Oh, so I have it.
Yeah, I mean, but there's such a wide spectrum. And if you Google Asherman syndrome, you're going to freak out. So maybe don't, because it's like the severe cases that are emphasized. But you can have really, really minor cases. And then you can have really severe cases where like the cavity is completely fused shut and there's really not much to do. And then there's cases like what you're describing. It sounds like, obviously I'm not your doctor, but I see it all the time and I treat it all the time. And I get patients with Asherman's pregnant all the time. No two cases are the same. I think the key is, how does your cavity look after those scars have been removed? And scars like to come back because that's what our body knows how to do. It's like just trying to help. It doesn't realize it's hurting. So my biggest PSA for anyone with scar tissue in their uterus or Asherman's is, if you're going to have it removed, it's smart to do it ideally like close to the time that you're going to try, because it can come back. And if you are, for whatever reason, going to wait, just do a second look. It doesn't have to be a hysteroscopy. It could be even just like a saline ultrasound to push the walls apart and get a nice clear view. Yeah,
those are painful, by the way. I currently have a balloon stent in my uterus to make sure that the scar tissue doesn't come back.
Yeah, they don't stick. The walls don't stick together.
Yeah. But by the way, it's not as uncomfortable as I was expecting it to be. I actually don't feel it at all.
Yeah, it can be annoying if like the tail end of it like pops out. It's just like weirds people out.
I know. But I thought it was going to be much worse than it is. But the saline thing is very painful, and I feel like they don't tell you how painful it is when they find scar tissue in there.
So it depends. I think it depends. So usually with scarring, it can be because it's like harder to push the walls, right? And so you feel that cramping. I had a saline and I was like, oh my God, I didn't feel anything, right? So I think it depends on the person. Saline ultrasounds tend to be less painful than HSGs, which are the tests to check the fallopian tubes. But again, everyone is so different, and it's important for everyone to be aware that pain can happen.
Yes, definitely aware. I almost threw up with mine, but I guess that's because I had scar tissue in there.
Erin, you really are being very open about your continued fertility journey. I think it's amazing.
I don't know.
You gotta be.
It's not that controversial to have scar tissue, I guess.
Well, no, none of it's controversial. No, none of it's controversial.
But it's
amazing that you're doing that. It's vulnerable. Exactly. Can we walk something back or can we not? Here's what I think we should walk back, but you're going to tell us if we can. Why is 35 still considered a geriatric pregnancy?
Like, it's really rude. Very rude.
It's not even real, is it? Like, that's not real.
Well, I've never ever, and it's not like, oh my God, I'm such a great doctor. I've never used the word geriatric. Like, even in my training, I never saw it on anyone's chart. It was always advanced maternal age. So I don't know if it's a New York thing, but like,
Also
I've heard
rude.
other. I know, but it's nicer than geriatric. Like, geriatric reminds me of like, you know, a grandma with like glasses and a walker.
Broken
like,
hip.
Totally.
No, but we grew up in the 80s and 90s when at 35, you were told you had to get like a needle the size of, you know, a 2 foot long needle into an amnio. Remember that? Like, I remember my friend's
Do you
moms.
still have to?
No. So listen, nothing has changed. It's just people are talking about things more sensitively and more mindfully. But you know, the world has changed. We didn't have the ability to vote and have jobs and have credit cards. Like credit cards, that was like in the 70s. But unfortunately, our biology and societal standards have not, you know, they're not moving in parallel. It takes a lot longer for our biology to evolve and adapt. Like, who knows what the situation will be in like a million years from now, if we'll still be here. But, you know, our ability for those chromosomes to stay filed away neatly and how age affects those proteins and the ability to ovulate a healthy egg that can turn into a healthy embryo, that is still affected by age. It doesn't matter how much later we're starting to build our families or, you know, being career women and all the other things that have changed. So I think we're just talking about it more sensitively because there's less judgment and there's more of us that are in this situation.
But I think we also have women later in life having kids and prioritizing their careers earlier. And so we're just seeing it more. Like when we grew up in the 80s and 90s, it was like 35 felt really old to have a kid. And now it doesn't.
The technology sucked. Like IVF, like my mentors who did IVF for patients in the 80s are like, oh my God, you're so lucky you get to call so many people with good news because like it was never covered by insurance. So not everyone could even try this experimental thing.
Isn't. I've never had mine covered.
A lot more patients have insurance coverage than way before, right? So like it's not perfect, but it's definitely a lot better. So we are able to push the limits a little bit more. Like here I am talking about my frozen embryos and like I could contemplate, you know, being in my 40s and my ability to get pregnant isn't tied to my age because I have done this preventative thing, right? And it's not to say it's easy and it solves all problems, but that's why we're seeing more of it because science has made it possible. And I'm not saying it's every time someone gets pregnant in their 40s, it's because of science, but a lot of times it is. And I think it's wonderful and amazing. But what hasn't changed is our risk of certain complications, which is a really real conversation because I don't want to be one of those fertility doctors that's like sugarcoating everything. Oh my God, we can all wait till we're 60. It's like, no, you do have a higher risk of high blood pressure, preeclampsia, diabetes in pregnancy. There's a higher rate of needing a C-section, which isn't the end of the world. But like all the things that can happen in pregnancy, there is an elevated risk. And that elevation, if you look at the stats, does start at 35. And then incremental risk, like even more at 40 and then even more at 45. But I talk to 40-something-year-old women in New York City all the time. And I'm like, listen, you are taking care of your body. You are healthy. You don't have any chronic medical conditions. Like you're in a good position. And, you know, being 40 without major chronic medical conditions and not having obesity and other risk factors is very different than someone that has all those problems because that compounds the risk factor of age. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. And I'm sure a lot of autoimmune diseases really affects it as well because inflammation makes everything harder.
Should we do a little bit of rapid fire with some of these questions? Like, let's just do a little rapid fire, which I know you need to give very thoughtful answers, but there's so many questions and our audience is going to be so pissed.
I'll try to be concise. It's a problem I struggle with.
and some of these we've already, you know, talked about, but okay. I froze 22 eggs. How many should I expect to be viable when I'm ready to have kids? We can't answer that. We can't answer it.
I need your age. And if you gave me your age, I could give you a guess. And I actually created a calculator on my website, theluckyegg.com, which is like an egg freezing calculator that models all of this out.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay,
but you have to put in your age
hope.
and the number of eggs.
Oh, okay. Please give hope. 37, single, and no eggs frozen. Is it too late?
No.
Not at all. I mean, There are tons of women that I never have to see, and they are able to get pregnant on their own at 37. The thing that is changing, not to sound like a broken record, is the chance of ovulating a healthy egg has slightly decreased, but it was never perfect for anyone. And it might take a few more ovulations to get there. And yes, there could be a higher risk of things like miscarriage, but that's something we're all up against. But definitely age can accelerate that risk. But it's possible. And my advice to you would be, if you've been trying for 6 months or longer, see a fertility specialist, get testing, because you want to be mindful of time.
Is it true you can only get pregnant while ovulating?
No, it's actually the opposite. It's sometimes it's too late if you're doing it only on the day of ovulation. Sperm lasts in the reproductive tract for up to 3 to 5 days. Once you release the egg, it has a short shelf life. It only lasts for like 12 to 24 hours. So ideally, it's actually the 3-day window in the lead up to ovulation, maybe even extending up to 5. So 3 to 5 days in the lead up to ovulation is what I would recommend.
You want the sperm to be like sitting there waiting by the time you're ovulating.
The man should be waiting for the woman.
The man should be waiting for you.
Okay. Thoughts on hormone replacement therapy, HRT?
I mean, it's again, like every answer I give, like it's nuanced, right? Like for what, for whom, for when. Like if you go through menopause early in life, like sometimes I meet women that for genetic reasons or whatever, like in their 30s, they go through menopause. That means their body has a major estrogen deficiency way earlier in life than it's supposed to be happening. The average age of menopause in this country is 50, 51. It's actually a very strong, solid recommendation. Like those women need physiologic replacement doses of the hormones that they're missing to protect their bone health. Otherwise, your bones can get really brittle and you're at risk of osteoporosis. You have a long life ahead of you. And to protect your your blood vessels and your longevity, right? Now, I think the key is, when do you start it? Like, so if someone just goes into menopause at a average age, like in their 50s, they don't necessarily have to go on HRT, or we call it MHT now, menopause hormone therapy. But it's a matter of quality of life. And like the main indication is to help women go through hot flashes and like deal with that, because it can be so disruptive. And there's brain fog and all these other things. So it's generally considered healthier, if someone does want to explore that option for their quality of life and to mitigate symptoms, to start it earlier in their transition, because there is data that people that waited too long and then started it had a higher risk of like cardiovascular issues. And it makes sense, because as we get older, as we become geriatric, our blood vessels start to harden and become calcified. And so our cardiovascular risks go up. So it is better if you're kind of starting it earlier than delayed, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But it's different for different people.
Okay, if you had to pick one myth, like if you were like, this one myth I want to dispel right now when it comes to fertility, what would it be?
Easy. Because we've already talked about some of them, like the AMH one is a huge one, but that fertility is a woman's problem and burden. And there's so much, I know that sounds like maybe generic, but 50% of cases of infertility have a male factor. And it's not just that. There's so much interesting data coming out now that's showing a link between paternal health, uncontrolled chronic medical conditions, obesity, even mental health issues that aren't well controlled, and the health of the future child, and even the incidence of certain medical issues during their partner's pregnancy. The male genes are making up a lot of what goes into the placenta. And that is like a newer revelation over the past decade that needs to be shouted from the rooftops, because all too often it's like the woman is reading that book that will go unnamed. That's like, oh my God, I need to cut everything out. And I like just need to sit at home and like exercise all day long and be perfect. Meanwhile,
it's always on us.
Their partner might be, like popping like, THC gummies and like drinking all the time. And like, they think it doesn't matter because their semen analysis is normal, but it does matter.
You know, what's so crazy is like, it's to piggyback sort of on this. So many people I know, women, think it's their fault. And then sure enough, they go get the sperm tested of their partner and it's not.
Yeah.
And we just never think, now maybe a little bit more, but like, it's pretty incredible how many people I know who it's the sperm. It's not them.
Yeah.
But that's like that doesn't even come up.
Well, guys don't like it.
And I'm seeing it a lot less now, but there was a time where it was like a real thing that like men would be like, I don't want to get tested. And I'd be like, really? Like this is such an easy thing that you probably do for recreation. We're just asking you to aim into a cup.
Literally,
Like,
it's
come
the
on.
least painful part of the
Yeah.
process. Ours is way worse. Oh my God.
But I do meet a lot
Sarah,
of great supportive partners. I do want to put that out there.
Sarah's battery on her camera has died, and we are at our end time that we decided. So I guess we're just gonna say that your book, The Lucky Egg, comes out in January. People are very excited about it. Go get her book. And also, can you tell people where to you just talked about your website where you can take this test, where people can find you, because there's a lot of good information.
Yeah. So I have a blog by the same name, theluckyegg.com, because branding. And then my Instagram is just my first name dot last name, LUCKY.SEKHON. And that's probably where I excel. That's where I put out a lot of content. And honestly, it's inspired by same-day conversations with patients, because every day I get asked new questions that make me realize that there's more education to be done.
Amazing. Well, you're fantastic. Thank you for the work you're doing.
We do a part 2.
Yes, but also, yes, we need to, because the truth is, like, I've realized there's so much I don't know about this. Erin is so informed because unfortunately, and fortunately, because she has like her perfect Noah, she's just gone through so much of this. So she knows so much. I literally realized like I know nothing. So I would love to do a part 2.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the book, is I'm trying to fill the knowledge gap. And I'm not just saying this because I wrote it. I would say this objectively if I read it just as someone reviewing. Like, I think it's going to change people's lives. That's my hope.
Okay.
Well, I do too. Thank you so much.
Buy the book.
Thanks, guys. This was a lot of fun.